Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to two new superheroes. Data Republican, small r, and tech dude Corey Watilo. I'm sure you probably haven't heard of them, but you should. And no superhero duo would be complete without a supervillain. In this case, the United States Agency for International Development, also known as USAID. All right, gentlemen, by the way, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, as you know, there is a huge war going on for, let's just say, the soul of the United States government. And one of the things that props up all of these progressive causes is supposed to be USAID, which is supposed to, or is not supposed to be USAID, which is supposed to be doing, international development growth for poor nations, but that's not what it does at all. And what Data Republican has done, she's anonymous for pretty obvious reasons, is she has put together a searchable database. It's called Federal Government Grant Award Search. And in this database, you can search by keyword, you can search by employer identification number, pretty much state, almost anything you want. And you will find out these $100,000, $1 million, $1 billion grants from organizations like USAID or the United States State Department that are essentially unaccountable. One of them, in fact, this is just one of those stupid Alinsky, pick a target and isolate it moments, is Bill Kristol. You remember him, the never Trumper, used to be kind of conservative. This guy is so on the grift with this stuff. Data Republican posted on Monday night that she and Corey had 48 virtual GPUs throttled, curating the USAID grant network for every single EIN, that's employer ID number. They ran this thing for 12 hours trying to sort through all this data. She said that's fine. It gave Corey a chance to prettify the data to make it better looking. And she said, blame the federal government for creating such computational complexity, which, if you ask me, that's exactly the goal, is to obfuscate where this money goes. But what she found is the network, the money network for defending democracy. That's Bill Kristol's nonpartisan little organization. And what the money looks like, we'll post this here. I've already uploaded it to Bill. The graph represents the grants from various USAID-affiliated NGOs flowing to Kristol's nonprofit. And this initial chart, it has EIN numbers instead of names because they hadn't gotten that far in the data sorting yet. So this money starts from USAID, goes through no fewer than 30 different cutouts. These are NGOs, these are nonprofits. Finally ending up with a couple $1 million that we know of so far going to Bill Kristol's totally partisan anti-Trump group. And the thing of it is, Bill Kristol's not even that big a player. It's just one easy to isolate example. Bill, in the criminal world, money laundering is taking money from criminal activities and running it through sham businesses to make it look legitimate. USAID and the State Department, they hand out this grant money that's supposed to be nonpartisan, and they run it through one NGO, one nonprofit after another to make it look like private money that can be spent on what amounts to partisan activities, almost all of them left-wing causes. Does this look criminal to you?
Well, it certainly does. And the first thing it does for me is instead of looking deeper into the details, it makes me want to stand back and look at the wider picture.
Yeah.
$1 million is $1 million, so let's just say for the sake of it, Bill Kristol found a way to get himself $1 million. Okay, $1 billion is 1,000 times that, and $1 trillion is 1,000,000 times that. And we have a federal budget now that's what, $4 trillion, something in that neighborhood?
6.1 trillion, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you look at the scale of the system, and Bill Kristol gets $1 million through, let's just say, non-transparent means to keep it value neutral, right? The scale of the potential fraud is 6 million times larger than his $1 million. That's the scale of the potential if this kind of spending and this kind of obfuscation is going on throughout the entire federal budget. And I suspect it is. I suspect if you start tracking these things, or at least looking at the federal spending in this way, you're going to find that this kind of of financing and this kind of just plain grift is endemic throughout the entire federal budget. I think you could apply the same kind of an analysis that they've applied to USAID, to the Defense Department, to Social Security, to any of these things, and find pathway after pathway after pathway where money has been earmarked for something that looks pretty good, which gets bled off to another organization, which looks okay, which bleeds it off to a third organization, to a fourth, to a fifth, or sixth, and then it's going to come back to people's individual pockets, and we're probably going to find out that we're spending $6 trillion to get maybe a $1 or $2 trillion value. That, if I had to just take a guess off the top of my head, which really means that if you got rid of this, we could all be paying a third of the income tax that we're paying now and get the same level of government if we got it done honestly.
Yeah, or tariffs for that matter, which of course have been in the news lately.
Sure.
Scott, I want to tell you a little bit more about Corey Wetilo because he's a tech guy. He's in Florida now, but he started off, as so many do, in the Bay Area, and he shared on X, I guess, what amounted to his red pill moment. He was in his 20s, making his first decent money in the tech world, and he bought his first new car. And he actually decided to look at all the taxes built into the price of his, or not built in, but tacked on to the price of his new car. It's not just the sales tax. There was the California Highway Patrol fee, the County Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies fee, the Fingerprint ID fee, the Smog High Polluter Repair fee, the Smog Abatement fee. Those are different. The alternate fuel / tech smog fee, the alternate fuel / tech registration fee, auto theft and or DUI crime deterrence program fee, the air quality management district fee, the South Coast Air Basin fee, whatever that is, because I think he bought this in the Bay Area, the city sales tax, and the reflectorized license plate fee. And each one of these fees represents some interest declaring that, if we tack this fee on, we can solve this problem. And of course, none of these problems ever get solved, but the fee is collected. And
they're not taxes, they're fees.
Yes. And of course, that's just one purchase in one state government. So, Scott, to broaden this back out, could what Elon Musk has been doing at OMB and at USAID and what Data Republican are uncovering, do you think this could be a red pill moment for the whole country?
Can you give a definition of red pill moment as you see it?
Red pill moment is that moment where you suddenly start leaning to the right because you have seen the utter corruption going on the other side.
So I've seen that phrase all over the place, and it actually makes me really uncomfortable because to me this isn't about conservatives, liberals, partisan Democrats, Republicans, or anything like that. This is about common sense and good governance. And I know that our side believes that we are on the side of common sense and good governance, therefore it's a red pill moment. But I'd rather pull it back a little bit and just look at this from a practical perspective of what's really going on with these agencies. Because, the U.S. Agency for International Development was ostensibly started to help people in other lands who needed a leg up for development. And it was an overtly geostrategic move on the part of the Kennedy administration, John F. Kennedy, to be able to counter what the Soviet Union was doing in countries around the world as they were trying to put together this whole cabal of communist or socialist countries. And so basically Kennedy wanted to say, see, the United States, we help people, we're good. And he wanted to get the aid out from underneath what he saw as the bureaucratic cruft of the State Department at the time. And so basically spin off that aspect of it and create a freestanding agency that can be more nimble and be more, in the field present and helpful to these other countries. And, the Soviet Union, which was the reason we created this thing, collapsed in 1991. And yet here we are in 2025 and we still have Kennedy's U.S. Agency for International Development. The problem with doing development in other countries is that most of the well-intentioned efforts, even of voluntary contributors, can often go to harming people in those local countries. There's one thing to do relief, like when a tsunami hits and suddenly people's worlds are just exploded and they don't have a house and they don't have clean water and they don't have food. But development is more about developing sustainability on an ongoing basis. And unfortunately, governments are really ill-suited to doing that. Any agency at the federal government level is going to struggle to do that. So in essence, I think dissolving that agency and turning it into maybe a branch of the State Department that says we provide relief in emergency situations, but development should be the place where opportunity and resources meet investment with accountability that spurs competition that gets people on the local level engaged in their own solutions to problems so that they then become the agents of change in their own countries. The federal government can't do that from afar. We can help, we can be charitable, we can bail people out in time of need. But I frankly hope that the Trump administration is successful in at least shrinking this thing down to something that can fit back inside of a small office at the State Department.
That would be lovely. Yes, indeed. And Scott, I'm so glad you mentioned accountability, because there's one other example that I wanted to mention, and this one comes to us courtesy of Oilfield Rando, one of those must-follow X accounts if you don't. This is a guy, he's a West Texas oil field worker who got laid off a few years ago and decided to just start going through bills and finding where the spending is. And he's uncovered a lot of great stuff, and now this is his job on X, is to expose this stuff, and this is how he earns his living. I think it's terrific what Elon Musk has done here. He uncovered a Millennium Challenge Corporation taxpayer grant for, get this, $624,824,543. We're talking almost 2/3 of $1 billion. This is a big grant. The money hasn't gone out the door yet, so hopefully this is one of those things that Musk is shutting down. But the money is supposed to go to, wait, we can't know. The recipient has been redacted due to PII. Now, PII stands for personally identifiable information. So we're not allowed to know who the recipient is, because if we do, we'll know who they are. This is government logic. But they have buried a $600 million grant, your tax dollars, to some organization or some person that all we know is they're in Indonesia. This is all you're allowed to know.
Wow.
There is so much of this going on. This is just one example in a slush fund that at last count was up over $50 billion a year. Now, that's a tiny portion of the federal budget, believe it or not. That's less than 1% of the federal budget. But it has an outsized effect because so much of this money goes to make progressive groups have much louder, more popular voices than they otherwise would, because they're not actually popular. No one would give them money to do the activities that they're doing. And you are paying for this partisan stuff with zero accountability, at least until now. But there's still a lot of work to be done. So I'm going to shut up and get out of Elon's way and Data Republicans' way and Corey's way and let them get to work. That's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.